Have you ever looked back on your life and wondered, why does it feel like others get all the admiration while I'm just overlooked? Maybe you've been the one who always showed up, did the hard work, made sacrifices, and yet the spotlight always seemed to shine on someone else. If that resonates with you, you're not alone. And today, I want to share with you a simple story, one that holds a powerful lesson about self-worth, resilience, and the kind of legacy we leave behind. There once was a grand museum in the heart of a beautiful city. You can imagine the kind of place I'm talking about. The echo of quiet footsteps on polished marble floors, soft light streaming through tall windows, and visitors from all walks of life taking it all in with awe. Right in the center of the museum's grand hall stood a magnificent marble statue. People would pause, stand in silence, sometimes even take pictures. It was a work of art, so detailed, so beautiful, so full of grace, that it seemed almost alive. But beneath their feet on the same shining floor lay countless marble tiles. You might not notice them right away. After all, when you're admiring something grand, you don't often look down. Those tiles were walked on, stepped over, barely even noticed. And one night, when the museum was quiet and empty, something curious happened. One of those floor tiles began to speak. It looked up at the statue and said, "Hey, we came from the same place, didn't we? The same mine. The same lorry brought us here. The same sculptor touched us both. So why does everyone praise you while they walk all over me?" Now that's a fair question, isn't it? Think about that for a moment. How many times in life have we felt that way? Maybe someone you worked with got all the credit while you were the one doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. Maybe your children or friends seem to shine in the world while you feel forgotten. It's a quiet ache many of us carry, but it's also a signal. A signal that something inside of us still longs to be seen, to be valued, to be understood. Back to our story. The statue looked down and responded with warmth, not pride. "Yes, we did come from the same place," it said. "And do you remember when the sculptor began working on us? He started with you first. But when he used his tools, those sharp, painful tools, you resisted. You cracked and crumbled. It hurt too much and you pulled away. So he stopped, set you aside, and began working on me instead." The tile fell silent for a moment. "Of course I remember," it said bitterly. "I hated that pain. I hated the way he chipped away at me." And the statue nodded gently. "I understand. It hurt me too. Every strike of his tool was sharp, unforgiving. But I chose to endure it because I believed, somewhere deep down, that if I allowed myself to be shaped, I could become something more." Now pause right there with me. Isn't that what life does to us sometimes? It strikes. It chips away at us with things like grief, loss, betrayal, illness, loneliness, disappointment. And when those moments hit us, especially later in life, it's tempting to say, "I've had enough. I'm done." But what if, like that statue, we allowed those hardships to shape us rather than break us? It's not easy. Let me be the first to say that. By the time you reach 60, 70, 80 years old, you've likely lived through more than your fair share of pain. You've lost people you loved. You've watched the world change in ways you couldn't have imagined. And perhaps, most difficult of all, you've watched yourself change, with new aches, slower steps, and sometimes a sense that the world no longer sees you the way it once did. But here's the thing. The sculptor is still working. Those tough experiences you faced, they've been shaping you into something remarkable. They've carved away what was never meant to last and revealed the strength, grace, and wisdom that can only come with time. Just like that statue, your beauty isn't in being untouched by hardship. It's in having survived it and still standing. So often, we compare ourselves to others. We look at who seems to be getting applause, who's still being admired, who's being liked or followed. But that kind of recognition isn't the same as real worth. Because real worth, the kind that stays even when the crowd goes home, is something deeper. It comes from how you carry yourself, how you treat others, how you've grown through the years. Think about the people in your life who've left the strongest impression on you. Were they always the most successful, the loudest, the most recognized? Or were they the ones who quietly endured, who offered comfort in hard times, who stood tall when life gave them every reason to collapse? That's what being a masterpiece really is. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but it's too late for me. I've already missed my chance. Let me stop you right there. It is never too late to become something more. As long as you're breathing, you are still being sculpted, still growing, still becoming. You might not see it, but others do. Maybe it's in the way you hold your head high even after a hard day. Maybe it's in your patience with a grandchild who's struggling. Maybe it's in the wisdom you quietly share when a friend calls for advice. Those little things, they are the chisel marks of a life well lived. Yes, they hurt. And yes, they're unfair at times. But every moment that challenges you is also offering you a choice. Will you let this shape you, or will you let it harden you? The statue and the tile came from the same place, but it was how they responded to the sculptor that made all the difference. One resisted and broke. The other surrendered and transformed. And the truth is, we face the same question every day. When life begins to chip away at us, will we give up, or will we trust that something more beautiful is being revealed? You know, something powerful happens when we stop fighting every discomfort and start asking, what is this moment trying to shape in me? That shift, quiet and invisible to the outside world, can change everything. In our story, the statue didn't become extraordinary by chance. It wasn't luck or being in the right place at the right time. It was choice, a hard one. When the chisel came down, it chose to stay. When the pain surged through every inch of its being, it chose to remain still. Why? Because it believed that the pain had a purpose. And isn't that what so many of us have learned the long, hard way? The loss of a partner, the loneliness that creeps in at night, the frustration of a body that doesn't do what it used to, all of these can feel like life chipping away at us. But what if those moments are precisely what's revealing something stronger inside of us? Think of a time when you endured something difficult. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe it was just last month. Maybe no one else even noticed what you went through. But you did. You felt the weight. You bore the hurt. And yet, you're still here, still standing. Maybe with a few more cracks, but still whole. That's strength. That's resilience. And let me tell you, it's far more valuable than any applause or attention. Because it's not based on what others see. It's based on what you know to be true in your soul. People often forget this. A statue stands still, silent. It doesn't beg for recognition. It simply is. And in being itself, in showing its quiet beauty day after day, people come to see it. They come to admire it. The same can happen in our lives, but not by seeking attention. It happens when we live with dignity, with grace, and with a quiet courage that doesn't always make headlines, but leaves a deep impression on the people around us. There's something else I want to say here, and it's important. Just because you've been walked on doesn't mean you're not worthy of admiration. The floor tile in the story, it wasn't useless. It supported the feet of thousands. It bore weight every single day. That's no small thing. But it never got to become what it could have been, because when the sculptor offered transformation, it said no. And that brings us to a question only you can answer. In this season of your life, whether you're 60, 70, or 90, are you still open to becoming something more? I'm not talking about fame or success or anything flashy. I'm talking about peace. about clarity, about the kind of inner transformation that makes you walk a little lighter and smile a little easier because you know you're becoming who you were meant to be all along. You see, the world teaches us to value youth, productivity, and speed. But there's a deeper kind of beauty that only comes with age. It's the beauty of someone who has known sorrow and kept loving anyway. Someone who has tasted disappointment and still shows up with hope in their eyes. Someone who has weathered many storms and still has the courage to care. That kind of beauty doesn't come from being untouched. It comes from being shaped again and again by love, by loss, by time, and yes, even by pain. I want to tell you a little story. A woman once came to one of our community talks, around 75 years old. She sat quietly in the back, listening. When it was over, she came up to me and said, "You know, I've spent my whole life being the strong one, the one others leaned on. But I never let anyone see me cry. I never let myself feel chipped away." Then she paused and smiled. "But maybe it's time I stop trying to be a perfect tile and let myself become a statue." What a moment that was. She wasn't talking about becoming famous or admired. She meant that she was ready to stop hiding her pain, stop pretending everything was fine, and finally allow herself to be shaped by her experiences. To let her vulnerability, her honesty, and her resilience become the art she leaves behind. That's the invitation here. Not to start over, but to continue. To allow every experience, even the painful ones, to work in us, shape us, refine us. And when we begin to live this way, something beautiful happens. We start seeing others differently too. We stop comparing. We stop resenting. We understand that everyone's sculpting process is different. Some people are still resisting. Some are just beginning. And some, maybe like you, have been quietly enduring for years and are finally starting to see the shape of what they're becoming. So the next time you feel overlooked or taken for granted, remember this. People may not always see your worth right away, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. Some masterpieces are quiet. Some don't reveal their full beauty until the very end. And some are only truly understood by those who know how to look beneath the surface. You are one of those masterpieces. Not because life has been easy, but because you didn't give up when it was hard. Because you've carried burdens others never saw. Because even now, in this moment, you're still willing to grow. You've made it through so much already. And whether you've ever said it out loud or not, there's something in you that knows. You're not just here to exist. You're here to become, and becoming. It's not a one-time thing. It's a lifelong journey. The sculptor didn't create the statue in a single day. It took time, patience, countless strikes of the chisel. That's life. It shapes us moment by moment, season by season. Sometimes with gentle nudges, other times with blows so sharp we think we might break. But we don't. And that's the quiet miracle of it all. We bend, but we don't break. We hurt, but we heal. We age, but we grow. And growth doesn't stop at a certain age. That's a lie we've been told too often. That after a certain point, we're done becoming. That we've peaked. That we're just here to coast along until the finish line. But let me ask you this. Has a tree stopped growing just because it's old? Have the waves stopped moving just because the ocean's been here for centuries? No. And neither have you. There's still time to say something you've never said. To forgive someone, maybe even yourself. To pick up an old dream. To be bold enough to ask, what now? Instead of what if. You see, life is not a straight line. It's a series of chapters. And maybe you're in the later pages of your book. But who's to say they can't be the most meaningful, the most powerful, the most freeing? And here's something else we often forget. People are still watching you. They're still learning from you. Your children, your grandchildren, your friends, even strangers. You may not feel like you're in the spotlight, but believe me, your quiet courage does not go unnoticed. The way you carry yourself, the way you love, the way you endure, that is your legacy in motion. There's a quote I love, and maybe it will speak to you too. It says, "Be careful how you live. You may be the only Bible some people ever read." It's not about preaching. It's about showing by example what it means to live with grace, humility, and resilience. It's about being the statue that inspires someone else to say, "If they can keep going, maybe I can too." And if you've ever felt like your story doesn't matter anymore, let me gently remind you, it does. It matters because you matter. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. And the beauty of your life, your real, raw, unfiltered life, is something the world still needs to see. Let the cracks show. They are proof that you've been shaped by something greater. They are the places where your light can shine through. You don't need to be perfect to be inspiring. You just need to be real. The tile in the story didn't understand that lesson. It only saw what it had lost, the chance to be admired. But what it missed was this: it also lost the chance to become. That's what happens when we resist the difficult things. We miss the transformation, the growth, the depth that pain can bring. No one likes hardship, but when we look back, we rarely remember the easy days. We remember the moments that tested us and how we came through them. That's where meaning lives. Not in ease, but in endurance. So if today feels hard, if you're facing something that seems too big, or you're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, please don't give up. You are not done becoming. There is still a masterpiece being carved inside of you. It might show up in small ways, the way you encourage someone younger, the way you keep showing up when no one else does, the way you hold your head high even when your heart is heavy. That matters. That changes people. That transforms ordinary days into sacred ones. And if you ever wonder whether anyone notices, let me say this to you now, from my heart to yours. I see you. I see the strength it takes to keep going. I see the beauty in your wrinkles, your wisdom, your weariness. You are not less because you are older. You are more because of everything you've walked through. So take a breath, lift your chin, and know this: you are still becoming. And that, my friend, is something truly worth admiring. Let's take a moment together, just you and me. Wherever you're watching this from, a quiet living room, a sunny porch, maybe even a hospital bed or a cozy corner of a cafe, I want you to breathe in the truth we've shared today. Not just as a story about a statue or a tile, but as something personal, as something yours. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about stone. It was a story about you. You who've been carved by life's unexpected turns. You who may have been stepped on or overlooked. You who sometimes wondered if it was all worth it. And you who, despite it all, are still here, still standing, still being shaped into something quietly extraordinary. You see, what makes a statue remarkable isn't just the way it looks, it's what it represents. Patience, endurance, the willingness to allow change even when it hurts. That's what separates a floor tile from a masterpiece. Not the material, but the mindset. You and I, we're not made of marble. We're made of something far more complex. Spirit, memory, love, fear, joy, heartbreak. But just like the sculptor's tools revealed the beauty within that stone, life's challenges have slowly uncovered who we truly are. And if you feel like your best years are behind you, let me say this gently. Your most meaningful years might still be ahead. Because when you've lived long enough to know what really matters, when you've stopped chasing the applause of the world and started listening to your soul, that's when life begins to feel real again. Rich, rooted, right. Some people spend a lifetime avoiding pain. But you've faced it. You've endured the chisels. You've stood through the storms. And even if you felt like giving up, even if you did give up for a while, you still found your way back to this moment. That matters. And you know something else? There are younger eyes watching you now. They may not say it out loud, but they're learning how to live by watching how you carry yourself, how you forgive, how you laugh, how you survive, and how you soften, even when life tries to harden you. You're teaching the next generation how to become statues, not by being perfect, but by being whole. So go ahead. Embrace the lines on your face, the quiet wisdom in your words, the resilience in your spine. You've earned every bit of it. You're not fading, you're deepening. And the beauty of that runs far beyond what the eye can see. The world needs more of that kind of beauty, the kind that comes from a life that's been lived fully, authentically, bravely. You are the proof that there is power in gentleness, that there is courage in showing up day after day, even when no one's clapping, that there is still so much to love, to give, and to become. So if you take one thing from this story, let it be this: you were never just a tile. You were always meant to be a statue, all along. And every moment of pain, every silent tear, every setback, it's all part of the masterpiece still unfolding in you. Let the world see it, not with noise, but with quiet strength. And as you go about your day, hold this thought close to your heart: you are still being sculpted, and the best part may yet be revealed. If this story spoke to you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what part touched your heart, or share a moment in your life where you chose to be shaped instead of shut down. And if you think someone else in your life needs to hear this today, please pass it on. You never know who might be waiting for a reminder of their worth. And if this message brought you comfort, hope, or clarity, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more heart-to-heart moments like this. We're building a space where stories like yours matter deeply. Here's to your journey, to your strength, to the masterpiece you are, and most of all, here's to living your best life at any age.